Hello, loves, and welcome to the Self Love Lab masterclass, Ways to Radical Self Love. This online offering is absolutely free and is not a 3-hour sales pitch, I assure you, wholeheartedly. The intention is to take a small slice of your day, roughly 45 minutes, introduce you to some helpful content, discuss some key themes of self-love, and gift you with a taster session using a therapy tool that I use often in my work. Something that I've found to be profoundly helpful in the field of self-love. I do, however, just want to alert you to the Self-Love Lab with the sentiment that this might be a useful signpost for you. The Self-Love Lab is an online platform for my work, which is highly focused on deepening and restoring healthy levels of self-love. I offer free resources, content, workshops, one-to-one work, rituals, an EFT community circle, and an incredible 28-day course, which is designed entirely to replenish and renew our relationship to self. It's called 28 Days of Radical Self-Love. So if this masterclass is something that speaks to you, you might be interested in joining the 28 Days of Radical Self-Love or having a look at the Self-Love Lab and becoming part of the community. I'll touch on this later. In this masterclass, we're going to be looking at self-love, inquiring, what is self-love? Why do people struggle with this? And what can we do to improve our self-love, our relationship with ourselves? How can we make this a practice that feels practical, easy, and with minimal efforting? This is a free resource. There's not going to be anything for sale. Of course, if you want to join the 28 Days of Radical Self-Love, where we can dip in deeper and there are much more tools available to you, you're very, very welcome. I'd love to see you there. And if this leads you to a deeper look at the Self-Love Lab, that's wonderful. But for today, for this small slice of time together, we're going to open up an important conversation and receive helpful insights. We're going to explore the main blocks and struggles that arise around self-love and try out a practical tool that you can do from home that requires very little from you. No equipment, no startup investments, just your presence and the space to be undisturbed. So, hello. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dominique Antonina. I'm the founder of the Self-Love Lab, and I've been working with people on the topic of self-love for more than 10 years. Starting off, I didn't really know that was what I would be doing, but it's become more clear to me in recent years that the trauma I've been working with, the stories that people have shared with me, and the therapies that I studied, at the core of all of that has been a crucial theme of self-love. My background has been working in mental health. I used to work for the NHS with people diagnosed schizophrenic. I also worked in assisted living with people who were diagnosed bipolar. And I work with a charity that provides welfare and harm reduction to people in psychedelic and mental health emergencies. After working in mental health for many years, I found myself a bit disconnected from that world. I wanted to be in service, but I wanted to do more than just facilitate the continuation of daily life. I wanted to help facilitate transformation. I wanted to see and be part of an active, positive change in people's lives. So then I retrained to become a practitioner of a therapy called Emotional Freedom Techniques, also known as EFT. I fell in love with EFT. It had a profound and positive impact on everyone I worked with, and I saw it as an easy and accessible way to facilitate positive and sustainable shifts. I then trained in neuro-linguistic programming, Reiki, transformational life coaching, and grief tending within communities. I've also studied hypnosis and cognitive behavioral therapy, And although I allow them to positively influence my work, I'm not a qualified practitioner of those, so I don't offer that as a one-to-one service. Who is this for? So today's masterclass is for anybody who is ready. Anyone who's ready to cultivate more self-love in their life in a practical, tangible way. It's for people who are done with delaying their happiness, self-worth, self-acceptance, and self-trust. For people who recognize that the choice to create more self-love, to build an environment for self-love to flourish, is within their own hands, within their capabilities, and it is theirs to claim. So if you feel ready for change and open to try new things, welcome. I'm excited to have you. Due to my working life, but also due to my personal life, I have been privy to people's deepest vulnerabilities. Throughout the years of working in mental health and then doing one-to-one therapies, as well as providing psychedelic welfare and harm reduction, and facilitating workshops, sometimes of up to 200 people at a time, I have been in a very privileged position of holding space and deep listening. Because of that, I've been exposed to hearing people in the depths of their vulnerability. I've been able to hear what is going on at the root of people's problems, and the root seems pretty universal. It became really clear to me that we live in a culture with a self-love deficit. Something that I kept hearing over and over again was that underneath the narrative, no matter the age, gender, background, privilege, or what the problems were that people were presenting, beneath all of that, there was this core feeling that self-love was somehow far away, that people weren't feeling connected to their self-love, or it only came alongside big accomplishments, validations, and evidence from the outside world that told them they were worthy of loving themselves. So in that sense, it was very fleeting, not very real or grounded, not something that they could just reach out and hold. And I empathize with this feeling. I know that feeling of self-love being far away, and I was witnessing it all around me. So I decided to speak back to that feeling and make an offering. I've been speaking back and forth to that feeling for many, many years. It seems to be at the core of all the work that I do. And because I was seeing it so much and exploring it in so many different ways through offering workshops, doing one-to-one work, through psychedelic welfare, and being with people in real crisis, I decided what I wanted to do was set up a company that was explicitly for self-love, for talking about self-love, for giving practical, tangible, real tools that work, that I've been using for years and that I've seen them be very, very impactful and effective. It's something that I feel really passionately about. It's something that I feel is deeply missing in our cultural, relational, and educational structures. For most of us, our culture does not teach us how to love ourselves well. We are not modeled how to love ourselves, take care of ourselves, or be in a thriving relationship with who we are. We are not given healthy examples or mentorship in the art of deeply listening to ourselves, respecting our needs and boundaries, and showing up for ourselves. For most of us, we absorb in our childhood years a sense that we must perform in a very specific way in order to belong and receive love. We learn to dismiss or dismantle aspects of ourselves that seem to not belong. And when we do that, we damage our relationship with who we are. If we're lucky and willing, we start rebuilding a trusting, respectful, healthy relationship with the person that we are later. We are with ourselves all day, every day, and we are in a lifelong relationship with ourselves. That deserves some help and some tending. We see and feel all of our insecurities, our traumas, our maddening thoughts, and our poorly executed coping mechanisms. But we also see and know all of our skills and our goodness and our magic and our beauty. So it makes a lot of sense to me that we fall in and out of love with ourselves, that every day is different. We get close to self-love and then we move away from it. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. And I think if we were in any other lifelong relationship with another human being, and if we couldn't take space from them, ignore them, or put the relationship to one side, I imagine we would feel frustrated, triggered, hurt, and disappointed by that other person. No matter how incredible they might be, or how much love we have for them, it would be challenging, and we would need support in nourishing that relationship. It's the same with our relationship with ourselves. We are bound to break our own hearts and break our own trust. And this deserves help, nourishment, tools, support, and empathy. So much of the time we don't seek support for our connection to self-love, or we don't really know what self-love might look like. There's a bit of a myth about self-love being this incredibly fluffy, soft thing, like having salt baths and eating chocolate. And that is one element of self-love. It might be about giving ourselves gifts and nourishment and joy and pleasure. But there's also the element of self-love, which is discipline and commitment and devotion, making the relationship work. It's about taking some self-responsibility, reclaiming our power, and making a life that we don't need to routinely escape from. So we're going to be looking at what has not been working, and we're going to look at what does work when it comes to self-love. We're going to try out an amazing tool and give you some information you can take away with you. Before we get going, let's check in with where you're at today. Could this be you? Does your self-love feel far away? Do you feel stuck or disempowered and disconnected? Have you found yourself making poor choices? Or are your thoughts about yourself coming from a critical inner voice? Would you like to feel more appreciative of who you are and what you're capable of? Do you feel held back by yourself? You're not alone. The problem with the deficit in self-love being universal is that it's common, widespread, and part of our cultural narrative. So it's normalized. And as kids growing up, we all wanted to be normal, didn't we? I've seen this so much in my work. There's also a myth that self-love is bad, that it equates to selfishness, an inflamed ego, and a sense of entitlement. So of course this has given self-love a bad reputation and dissuaded people from cultivating it. But nothing could be further from the truth. Being connected to self-love is not about being selfish or arrogant or egoistic. It's about being truthful and accepting of who you are, navigating your relationship with yourself in a skillful and loving way, and showing up for yourself in your fullness, being really here, really alive, healthy and well. If anything, this would help create less entitlement, selfishness, and egoic nonsense, because we'd be fundamentally much happier, able to meet our own needs, and therefore less demanding that the world meet our needs and give us constant validation. Because of so much misinformation, self-trust is often broken. We stop listening to ourselves because we're unconsciously taught not to listen to ourselves. We stop cherishing ourselves the way we are because we're taught to seek our validation on the outside. We're not really shown or modeled how to listen to our needs and know our boundaries. The list goes on, and I could talk about this all day, but I won't. Let's just say this. If you come from a world like that, which so many of us do, it's quite difficult to feel like we've established a deep sense of self-trust, self-respect, and self-appreciation. And that has a harmful impact on our sense of self-love. So let's just talk a bit about what you might have tried already. I'd like you to just have a look at the list now. Maybe you've tried toxic positivity, or doing it all on your own, or coming from a place of, I should do this, I should do that, or pushing too hard, using judgment as the motive. Perhaps your self-love has been limited by keeping it on the light side, like I said, with salt baths and chocolate, and avoiding doing real inner work. Let's break this all down a little bit. So toxic positivity. When I use the word toxic, it means that something very positive has gone so far out of balance that it's no longer positive. Obviously, positivity and optimism in itself is a wonderful quality, but toxic positivity is when you don't actually allow yourself or give space to feel your wholeness, which includes your shadows and your discomforts. Toxic positivity means you're not being real with yourself. There are elements of life and of ourselves that are incredibly challenging and hard. And when we can't claim that truth because we want to be so positive all the time that we ignore anything negative or challenging, we are bypassing ourselves. We're not being very honest and authentic anymore, and we've gone into toxic positivity. That's damaging for many reasons. Firstly, you're not in an honest relationship with yourself anymore. You're not being real about the full spectrum of who you are and what you feel and what your experiences have been. Secondly, if you're not being real about a problem, there's no way that you can fix it. And thirdly, it takes you very far out of your truth and your balance. So you're not really grounded in such a place as that. And that puts you in a very vulnerable position. Of course, it's great to be optimistic. And you can be optimistic and grateful for all the wonderful things in your life, in your world, and about yourself. You can cherish things and appreciate things and still honor and accept the fact that there might be something difficult going on at the same time. Now, doing it on your own, by that I mean trying to work on your self-love, but without receiving much support or encouragement or mentorship. Perhaps you don't have any inspiring ideas related to the topic, and so it's very challenging and unmotivating to work towards self-love. Shoulding is when you tell yourself you should be this, you should be that. You're not really giving yourself any options or any permission to be where you are. You're automatically assuming that what you've done is wrong because you should have done something else. Using judgment as a motive is when you're no longer really motivating yourself to bring in positive change from a place of expansion, curiosity, love, or excitement. You're doing it from this place of judging yourself and feeling you're not good enough. You're lacking something, and so therefore you must change. And that way of bringing change into our lives is not optimal. It's not sustainable because it doesn't feel good to be coming from a place of strong judgment. It automatically puts us in a position of conflict within ourselves because on the one hand, we're judging ourselves and being very critical. And on the other hand, we're trying to love ourselves the way we are. This is a confusing message. Using love as the catalyst for change is much more empathetic, soft, compassionate, loving, accepting. It suggests being okay with who we are, the way we are right now, but also being open to more positive change taking place, understanding that we are constantly evolving and that we have choice, and that we can choose to grow in ways that suit us and bring us joy, while still loving ourselves the way we are. And this is the Self-Love Lab way. Again, I just want you to have a look at the list of qualities that the Self-Love Lab encourages. This is the way that I encourage people to foster positive changes. First of all, we give ourselves permission to be real. We allow ourselves to be honest. We allow ourselves to speak up and be heard and be seen about what is difficult. We don't deny or hide from uncomfortable and painful stuff. It's about building compassionate community, finding others who are on a self-love journey and who want to support and encourage each other and hold each other accountable. It's about feeling belonging in community and knowing you're not doing this all on your own. It includes having a dialogue with the inner critic and the other parts of ourselves which are difficult. Bring them in and allow them to be integrated and part of the journey with us. We're not trying to exile or shut down or get rid of or kill off any parts of ourselves. Can you imagine if you had a really protective but slightly overbearing friend who had good intentions for you but executed them in a slightly annoying way? You probably wouldn't dream of killing them off, even if they had some irritating qualities or the way they tried to help you wasn't really working. You wouldn't just shame them. Hopefully you'd have a more cohesive conversation with them. You might say something like, "Hey, I'm noticing you're being really protective of me right now. And I see you're trying to help me, but the way you're doing this isn't really working. How else can we be friends? How else can this work for both of us?" But so many of us try to kill off aspects of ourselves that we don't like. This automatically sends off the wrong message. We are fundamentally killing off parts of ourselves, parts of the person we are trying to have a loving relationship with. Why would we do that? So instead, we treat all these elements of ourselves like good friends. They are trying their best to support you in some way that maybe you don't fully understand, or maybe it's not working so well, and therefore we need to have a more cohesive, healthy dialogue with them. Self-responsibility and self-trust are keys to self-love. It's not just about the fluffy stuff. It's about taking responsibility for our lives. It's about listening to ourselves and standing by our words and being in our integrity so that our self-trust can be rebuilt and we can stay in good rapport with ourselves. It's about using love as a motive for change, not judgment. Inclusive, holistic love, which means working with our traumas, keeping it sustainable, which means our self-love practices need to be fun. Otherwise, you're not going to want to show up. So, yeah, we're working on ourselves and it is digging deep, but it's also fun. It's something we can look forward to, something that we can integrate into our lives at our own pace, something that serves us and feels right. So let's make some good shifts happen from a positive place. How do we do that? How and when do good shifts happen in our lives? Positive shifts happen when you commune with yourself. So that means you're listening to the different, sometimes fragmented parts of your being. You're listening to your inner critic, to the part of you that is wise and grounded. You're listening to your passion, your curiosity, your inner child, your inner parent. You're bringing together all of these elements and having a healthy dialogue that makes sense and allows you to make changes that serve you. Positive shifts happen when we can change our neuro pathways. It's been scientifically proven that our brains are plastic and we can make changes. We don't have to live with the stories we grew up with or the belief systems that no longer work for us. We can break up the typical patterns that our brain takes due to trauma or difficult experiences or outmoded belief systems. We can change all of that. we can change the pathways of the mind. We can divert them and give them a completely new route. It also happens when we have support, when we have accountability and people to talk to about the positive changes we're making. It happens when we have tools and skills being given to us. Positive shifts happen when it's sustainable, not just a one-off experience that you can't integrate into your life. We don't go to therapy once and then expect everything to change. We start implementing small changes into our daily life, and we make that sustainable until those things are just habitual for us. And then when we look back, we realize we've completely changed our lives or done something very different, and we have a new way of thinking about the world. Something has become more supportive and more sustainable in our lives, and the way we thought about a particular problem has shifted. That's the power of making positive shifts that are tangible, practical, and can be made habitual. So we've got to have a practical sensibility to our approach. We've got to have stuff that we can do in the real world, in mediocre moments, in the essential daily life. Not just conjuring it up by daydreaming about it or thinking about it in this big, grandiose way. It's got to be something that makes sense and that we can bring into our world. So let's just look at these two sections side by side. There's the self-love lab way, and on the other side are the common pitfalls. The self-love lab and the 28 days of radical self-love brings skills like emotional freedom techniques, neuro-linguistic programming, rituals, shadow work, self-inquiry, cognitive behavioral therapy, meditations, journaling, as long as inspiring mentors and an online community of like-minded people. The tools that we use for the 28-day course provide fast results, and they are easy to practice and sustainable. Compared to the other side, the pitfalls, and what I observe a lot of people doing, and what I've also done in the past, which is doing it on your own without tools. Doing something that's kind of repetitive, like maybe you found this one way of working on your self-love and it might have worked 5 years ago, but you keep trying that and it hasn't actually worked for you for a long while. Or maybe you set unrealistic goals or are driven by a sense of lack. So a feeling of not being good enough is the driving force, and you expect or you start to receive lots of setbacks and loops. So now I want to ask you, would you like to try something new? Would you like to try something new with me right now? And I hope that you feel a yes to that. So what I'm going to introduce to you now is emotional freedom techniques, also known as EFT or tapping therapy. Emotional freedom techniques combines the Chinese meridian energy system, which we use in acupuncture and acupressure. We'll be lightly tapping on energetic points that are just beneath the surface of your skin. This is a place where we often store a lot of trapped, blocked, stuck emotional energy. So as we tap on it, we are releasing that and allowing it to be freed up. Whilst we're doing that, we're talking through the issue, finding the root cause, and searching for a more positive but authentic reframe. Typically, in a session, we're also doing some pieces that are similar to EMDR and some neurolinguistic programming styles of therapy. This quickly gets us to shift from the left to the right hemisphere of the brain, allowing us to create new neural pathways. It allows us to think subtly yet profoundly differently about the problem in a more positive, optimistic way, while still recognizing the truth of where we are, the wholeness of our experiences. It's saying, so I have this problem, but what else is there? How can I love myself even if I'm feeling stuck? And how can I start looking at life differently? So we're going to be tapping on energetic points, releasing blocked emotions. And then in terms of linguistics, how we say things is important. We're going to be gently guiding ourselves to more loving thoughts, more positive perspectives, while still being truthful. We combine this with the rapid eye movements used in EMDR, which is a trauma release therapy, and the linguistic programming of NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. That would be a typical session, roughly an hour of tapping with time to talk on either side. So a typical one-to-one session is about an hour and 20 minutes. But this is just a taster. So these are the tapping points. Just have a look at the diagram and familiarize yourself with them now. We're just going to choose 3 of these tapping points. Usually I would do this work one-to-one or maybe as part of group work, and we would all be tapping at the same time, tapping all the points in this diagram. And I would be able to see exactly where people are tapping and we'd work together. But because we're doing this online for a brief time, I just want to make this as simple as possible, just to give you a little flavor of what EFT is like. So we're just going to choose 3 tapping points. We're going to choose the start of the eyebrows, just above the eyebrows. This point is labeled EB. So that's the eyebrow point that connects to the bladder meridian. The second point is the side of the eyes, labeled SE. And for all these points, just use 2 fingertips. So now move to the SE point, the side of the eyes, which is the gallbladder meridian. And you can see on the diagram, it's just the side of the eyebrows and the eyes. And then the third point is just under the eyes. And that's the stomach meridian, labeled UE. So just using 2 fingers, the tips of your fingertips, tap just beneath the eyes. If you're not tapping already, I'd like you to start tapping now. Tapping on either side, the left or the right, it doesn't really matter. You can be on both sides at the same time. And you're just going to move between these 3 points. So the EB point, the SE point, and the UE point. So I just want you to continue tapping the whole time, and you can move between these 3 points at whatever pace you like, and you can swap sides or tap on both sides. And what I want you to do going forward is I just want you to repeat what I say after me as you're tapping on these points. So we're going to go ahead now. You're just going to repeat what I say after me and tap on those 3 points, one after the other. Even though sometimes my self-love feels far away. Sometimes I really struggle to accept myself, to love myself. Sometimes I get really critical about this person that I am. And I focus on everything that I'm not doing and that I don't have. Or I create scary stories about the future. I still deeply love and accept myself. Even if I'm not perfect, I know I'm worthy of love and I love myself. And even if my self-love comes and goes, even if it's been a long time since I felt connected to everything that's good about me, to everything that's right with me, deep down, I do love and accept this person that I am. Deep down, I do want what is best for me. Even though I'm not perfect, even though I can think of things that I find hard about myself, things that I wish were different, things that I wish hadn't happened. I still deeply love and accept this human that I am. And I am okay. I still feel connected to, I still have an awareness of all my good qualities, all the things that other people love about me. The things that I do like about myself, that I'm grateful I have. Yes, there are things about me that I really love. And I can bring my attention to that. There are things about myself that I love. There are things about myself that I really love, that I'm really grateful for. There are things about myself that if I woke up tomorrow and they weren't there, I would be really sad. I would really miss those qualities. Maybe I can just bring my attention to that. Maybe I can just focus my energy right now on what is good about me, what I wouldn't change, what I would grieve if I didn't have it. So for this bit, don't repeat the words after me. I just want you to have a little think now. Continue tapping on those 3 points. And have a little think. Choose 3 things that you really love about yourself. 3 things that you have received compliments about, or you have seen it be a positive force in the world. 3 ways in which you really respect or admire or appreciate yourself. Ways in which you have been useful, helpful, kind, funny, clever, gifted. Things that come naturally to you. Ways in which you are beautiful Maybe you have an incredible smile or laugh. Maybe you make people feel at ease. Maybe you're a fantastic cook or partner or parent. Maybe you're incredibly hardworking and devoted and get things done. Just choose 3 qualities now. And in your mind or aloud, I want you to just say, I love, and fill in the gap. Let's say you chose smile, the way that you care for others, and just for example, your gardening skills. So as you're tapping on one point, you'll say, I love my smile. Then you move to the next point. I love gardening and I'm really great at it. And then you move to the last point and say, I love the way I care for people and show care. So choose 3 qualities and move between those 3 points and say aloud or in your mind these 3 things that you love about yourself. And just do that for a few minutes now. And I want you to repeat after me again. Continue tapping. Even if I'm never perfect, there are always good things about me. Things that are lovable. Ways in which I'm completely unique. And I can bring my attention to that. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to continue growing, learning, improving. But I love myself exactly the way I am. I'm choosing now to love and appreciate myself, to embrace myself in love and compassion. And I can continue to grow, to surprise myself, while still knowing and still feeling I am enough. I am enough. I am good enough. And I love myself. So just take a few deep breaths here and stop tapping. Thank you for joining in with that. So I hope that you enjoyed that. I'm just going to let you know a bit of feedback that I've received, and you can find more on the Self-Love Lab, just to give you a taste of the testimonials and what people are saying. I booked Dominique to work with me on some long-standing blockages, self-limiting thought loops, and issues related to complex trauma. Dominique is a very safe pair of hands. Her brilliant seeing of all things means she's highly attuned to subtleties of emotional states, and her reflections and processes continually anchor the sessions and keep them grounded. I felt a tangible benefit each time and also a shifting and deep healing over time. I couldn't recommend Dominique more. That's from Astral. Dominique's group sessions with EFT and NLP were very restorative and transformative for me when I was struggling through a difficult time. Dom leads in such a gentle and calm manner. She's very attentive as she takes you slowly through different exercises. I really felt listened to and understood, even as part of a group. And Dom's ability to pinpoint the common themes in every person's story helped me realize I wasn't alone in what I was feeling, and that was a great comfort. That's from Anthony. I never tried EFT or NLP before, but Dom was so gentle and nurturing from the very beginning. I felt so safe to surrender and release deep-rooted emotions that I didn't even know I was carrying. I felt so much lighter and as if a weight had been lifted. Powerful stuff. Highly recommend. Love, love, love. That's from Eleanor. So this is the ethos of the Self-Love Lab. Empathy, technique, honoring ritual, online community, and self-care tools. If you appreciate the ethos, the tone, and felt a connection with offering here today, then I'd love to see you at the 28-day course or over at the Self-Love Lab page. The Self-Love Lab offers one-to-one sessions, bespoke group work, workshops, online courses, free content, and of course, the 28 Days of Radical Self-Love course. The 28 Days of Radical Self-Love breaks down the concepts of self-love into tangible, real-life, healthy structures for self-love to thrive in, such as trust, acceptance, communication, appreciation, responsibility. We draw on tools like EFT, rituals, shadow work, CBT, NLP, and inner child work. We have inspiring mentors, an online community, and a structure to follow. I really hope to see you there. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Feel free to reach out, and thank you again for joining.